welcome to Horror Bois. It's a podcast on the internet. I'm Austin, joined as always by
Chris
and Isaiah,
and we are the Horror Bois. And this is a horror movie review podcast. So let's review a horror movie or something, right? That's what we're supposed to do, I think. Or we're gonna start talking about Primus. Because we're big Primus fans here. Unless you're a Primus fan.
Everyone's a big Primus fan.
And then we're not.
Don't ask us about any Primus song, aside from South Park theme.
I have listened to a Primus song 300 plus times.
Hundreds of times, yeah.
Yeah. Why did I do this in the actual podcast? What's wrong with me?
Laugh like a Frenchman?
No, the Primus joke.
Oh, yeah. There probably is a major overlap between Primus fans and horror fans.
I mean,
Probably.
At the very least, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 fans, because as you let me know, there's apparently a Primus song that, uses a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 line in it, so...
Oh, yeah.
Those Primus fans are coming for this video. When I put that
like
line
of flame.
When I put that line in the tags, and they come looking for that song, because I can't remember the name of it, but...
And then they unfortunately stumble upon our podcast.
Find our podcast.
The song
Like,
they were looking for.
I guess I'll listen to this 2-hour podcast about a movie I wasn't looking for. No, that's not a thing. Oh, I guess we should start talking about the movie though.
Oh.
Today we are talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, which is directed by Tobe Hooper once again, but this time written by L.M. Kit Carson.
What a name.
Yeah. It did seem like they referred to him as Kit mostly, like when people were talking about him. But his title, when I watched the documentary and his IMDb, it said L.M. Kit Carson.
That's what he is in the credits too.
Yeah. So that's
fascinating.
Yeah. So let's tell us about what happens at the beginning here. We open on a crawl about the first movie. It's they're copying that thing from the first movie where they do that open and crawl. But this time, instead of, trying to make it sound like it's a real thing, they talked about what happened in the last movie. So, we then head to the credits, which are far less interesting to watch than the first time. The first movie had the cool solar flare-like effect behind them. This time, they're just there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Punctuated with, musical stings, but that's about it.
We then meet two annoying characters. I believe they're supposed to be in high school. They come off very college vibes, but they mention being class of something high school. So
Yes, yeah.
So
from McKinney or something, yeah.
So there are two high school students named Rick the Prick and Buzz.
Yeah.
Or sorry, the Buzz, I believe. Sorry.
Dude, yeah.
The Buzz.
Yeah.
Buzz is his father. He's the Buzz.
Please. Don't call me Mr. Buzz.
Call me the Buzz.
Yeah.
Two of the most irrationally, just for no reason, annoying and obnoxious characters ever written. Yeah. Ever.
I mean...
Rick the Prick wearing weird, holographic...
eyeball
glasses. Yeah, they have eyes imprinted in the lens changes colors depending on how you look at it. It's
the novelty shades.
Effect. Yeah,
I believe we have seen very similar glasses in one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. The one where they're graduating. I don't remember which one that is.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Yeah.
Is it the Dan Jordan wears them? I think it might be.
I think it is the Dan Jordan.
The Dan Jordan wears them.
And Rick also has a 44 Magnum that he's just shooting. It's not a 44 Magnum. It's a revolver.
Yeah.
Some kind of revolver.
But he's just shooting road signs with it because apparently that was a thing that people just did for fun, was drive down the Texas highway and shoot road signs from
Dude, they amp up the Texas stuff to 11 in this movie. In the last one, it's it's clear, we're in the Austin area, the Hill Country or whatnot, and hey, there's a barbecue place in the gas station. And here it's everybody's drinking a Shiner. There's ZZ Top posters everywhere. They're approaching signs for this theme park that eventually does become important. That has Battle of San Jacinto, Remember the Alamo, and all this stuff. And there's Lone Stars and jeans and Wranglers, Pearl Button snap shirts and everything. And they're going to the Texas OU game in Dallas. So this is like this over the top Hollywood depiction of like 80s Texas, where everybody's just shooting guns down the highway and everything.
I mean, to be fair, this is directed by Texas native Toby Hooper, shot in Texas. So it's not even really. This is just his opinion of Texas, not just the.
That's a good point.
The Hollywood. This is just he hates Texas, maybe, or he loves these over the top nature of Texas.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty cool time to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
who doesn't love shooting road signs? Woo! And then you have that really annoying laugh that I'm not going to try to do, but Rick the Prick's laugh is grating, and it is grating. Mostly all he does.
Yeah, it sure is all he does.
And they call into Stretch's radio station, and Stretch is played by Horror Bois alumni Caroline Williams. She was in
alumni.
Yeah,
she graduated.
Yeah, she graduated. She was years after this. She was in Hatchet 3?
Hatchet 2, right?
I think it's 3. I think it's 3.
Yes.
Yes.
The good one, yeah.
And she's back again in this movie. But back again, I mean, this was her first role. That is the only reason she was able to be in that movie. Because, Adam Green hires people from horror movies. That's what he does.
And this, in case you didn't know, is technically a horror movie.
I mean...
Strictly speaking.
I think
it's definitely more comedy than it is.
It's a horror comedy, but I mean, it's got both. It's got elements of both.
It's got sprinklings of both.
Sprinklings.
I mean, we'll agree to disagree, but that's fine. I mean, I feel like no comedy movie is going to have the gore that's in this movie.
That's a good point. This is way gorier than the last one.
Because our special effects are by Tom Savini.
Tom Savini.
Of Friday the 13th 4. I think it's one of the only movies we've actually got to see him do. And one. Don't know why I forgot his, both, but yeah. He's a legendary makeup artist.
He's done The Worst, Friday the 13th, and also the first one.
Which one are you saying is the worst?
The fourth one?
The fourth one is the best one. Or one of the fourth one is the final chapter. You're thinking of the fifth one, The New Beginning, is the one you hate. We all loved 4 when we watched it.
They're all a blur in my mind, I'll be honest.
And that's, I guess, somewhat fair. There are a lot of them, and a lot of them have very similar plots. But he did the first one and the fourth one. The fifth one and the ninth one were the ones we absolutely roasted.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The fifth one's the one with Roy.
Roy.
4 is the one where they killed Jason on and it also has little
man.
What's the actor's name? He's really famous. I feel bad for forgetting his name.
Couldn't tell you.
Corey Feldman.
Corey
Feldman running around being crazy. It's a great movie. Go watch that movie instead of listening to our podcast.
No,
turn this off right now.
Please keep listening to our podcast, and then go watch the movie.
Okay, yeah, fair. Or go listen to our podcast on that episode if you haven't seen that.
Oh.
This is a weird episode, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, listen to this podcast. Go watch the movie, and then go listen to our podcast about that movie.
And then listen to every other podcast we've ever done a couple times. Boost those numbers.
Oh, man.
But yeah, they call into a radio broadcast. And they're shooting signs, as we mentioned. They also play chicken with her truck. And then that's kind of the end of that scene. They can't get him off the phone for a while, but eventually they do hang up. And we come back a little bit later in the night, basically with them just calling again. These are 2 different scenes, though. There is a moment where they hang up. There's probably an interlude of her being pretending, or not pretend, but I guess it is because it's acting, but her being ending a different song, going into and now for requests kind of a thing again later. And they call back in. And on the second call, they are being annoying again because that is their only character traits.
Yeah.
And but thankfully, they don't get to be annoying for too long this time because there is a truck shows up with a chainsaw wielding person on the back. Wonder who that could be. It's Leatherface,
the mystery.
Guys. It is Leatherface, but you can't tell at first, I guess, because he does
wearing kind of a disguise.
Yeah.
Well, the disguise being one of his brother's bodies.
Yeah, being Nubbins, his dead brother's body from the last movie. You may remember him as the hitchhiker, but in this movie, he is credited as Nubbins.
He gets a name this time. In death, post mortem.
Okay. Nubbins is meant to be the hitchhiker?
Yeah.
Yep.
How do we know that? I mean,
I've heard it online.
okay.
Maybe I don't know where it was said, but it is considered. I think another thing that might in the movie kind of lead towards it is there is a moment later where Drayton pulls something out of his little like knapsack neck thing that he had.
That where the grenade comes from?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So he is, and even if it's not directly said in the movie, it has been confirmed that he is supposed to be the corpse of the dead hitchhiker.
Wild. All right.
Yeah, and Leatherface is, has Nubbins on top of him. And Leatherface, in this movie in general, is played by an actor by the name of Bill Johnson. But in this specific scene, he is played by a stunt performer by the name of Tom Morga, who also played Dream Jason in the worst Friday the 13th movie, Part 5. As well as playing Michael Myers in Halloween 4, and he is the only actor to ever play both Jason, Michael, and Leatherface. It's a cool little fact about the guy. He got to play all three of those characters. Yeah. That's it. And it's only for this scene, though. The rest of the movie, it's either Bill Johnson / I believe there is also a stunt performer who does some of the stunts, but didn't write the stunt performer's name down. I'm sorry.
Can't believe you.
I know.
You've let it all down.
I should be fired, but I'm not, because I run the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had even a smidgen of humility. Sorry.
And this whole attack is happening while they're still on the call with Stretch.
Right.
So she is currently broadcasting this still, and or at least I think she's currently broadcasting it. I don't know for sure. I think the implication was that she was. But yeah, so she's currently on the phone this whole time, cutting back and forth to her. But this leads to Leatherface cutting through the skull of Buzz, and some amazing Tom Savini gore. You immediately go, there's my Tom Savini.
Now that's what I'm talking about. That's some quality gore right there.
The last movie, doesn't have a lot of gore, but it's still a great movie. This movie said, we'll give you gore. You want gore. Here you go. Here's some Tom Savini gore. Let's get you the best person if we're going to give you gore for the first time in this franchise.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Tom Savini's amazing. I just want to... Can we just talk about Tom Savini for the next 2 hours? I like this movie, but I just want to talk about Tom Savini instead.
He's arguably the best part of this movie. Arguably.
I don't know. I love Bill Moseley's performance as Chop Top later. I love Chop Top, but I get...
Really?
I love Chop Top.
Okay.
But we'll get to Chop Top when he shows up, which is a little bit later.
Pretty soon, yeah.
There's actually a lot of not him being here for a while.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he cuts through Buzz's head, and that eventually kind of causes them to crash, and Rick the Prick also dies, presumably off screen, either by them or through the crash. His body is not at the scene of the crime the next morning, though, when we meet Lieutenant Lefty Enright, who is played by Dennis Hopper, who is a relatively big name as an actor, and from my understanding was already kind of a name. He probably was too big of a name to be in this random movie for the time. I guess Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1 was a very successful movie, so maybe that's why. But it did feel out of place to see an actor of that high of a name in a horror sequel. And you know what? He gives one of the weirdest performances ever throughout this movie, so...
Dude.
He sure does. And that's pretty great.
I've seen 2 movies, well, 3 that he's been in. I've seen Cool Hand Luke, but I don't remember him in there at all. I just learned from Wikipedia that he was in there. He was an Easy Rider with Jack Nicholson. Weird movie. And he was the crazy guy that gets shot and hang him. The Prophet. He calls himself the Prophet, and then he gyrates outside away from and he gets shot by the sheriff or whatever. And he does this, matching his performance here, this hilarious Western death where he gets shot and he falls to the ground and he lays there for a little bit and then he rolls over again after being dead for a couple seconds, and and then he dies a second time.
So maybe the name
for
Nick
real.
Hopper means more than the roles he actually chooses to take. Because it sounds like he's always giving a weird 110% in every role he does. But yeah, he's here, and we find out in this scene that he is the uncle of Sally and Franklin from the first movie. And that we also, I believe, in this scene, or maybe it was in the crawl as well, but I think they reiterate in this scene that this is 13 years after the events of the first movie.
Yes.
And then we also find out that he was a former Texas Ranger, and that he is obsessed with these chainsaw killings that have been happening all over the state of Texas in the last 13 years. But the cops just don't take it seriously. They just don't care. They're like, "What are you talking about? This ain't a chainsaw killing." And he has a pretty good line about like, "Oh yeah, this guy was just having so much fun that he chopped off his head," and it's a pretty good point.
Yeah.
Going 90 miles an hour.
But gets his head like chopped off the way it's the way that kill happened. It's not something you do just having fun.
Being rowdy. Yeah.
But well, it's not a chainsaw killing. You're crazy, Lefty. You're a crazy guy. It's kind of.
I mean, in their defense, he is a crazy guy.
Yes, he is.
They don't know that,
That
though.
is true.
They really don't understand how crazy he is. But
In this movie, Lefty is basically playing Caroline Williams' character from Hatchet 3. I know this happened first, technically, so she's playing his character, but she was also a crazy person that no one believed about the killings that they were right about in the end.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so after that, we head to Stretch. Goes to, apparently, I guess, because there's an article in the newspaper, she's able to find Stretch's hotel room, because I guess that was printed in the newspaper.
yeah, as that is.
I think that she finds his, because she does come to the door, but he ushers her out, which would be weird if it was her room.
No, I said that. I thought I said that. Like, yeah, she finds his. She in the newspaper. She has a newspaper. And it's like, see, your article. You were written in this article, but no, she's at his. I meant to say that if I misspoke. Yeah, I might
have misheard you. I thought you said her room.
No, it's his hotel room that she just kind of shows up to somehow.
I
understand.
Yeah.
There is some rowdy partying going on in the hallway though, with a cameo from Toby Hooper. He walks he's the guy with the hat who walks in front of the camera and looks right at the camera and then keeps walking.
No.
Gotta spike the camera.
I believe he is holding a cigar as well as a Dr. Pepper, which is apparently his thing. On set, he'd also almost always have a cigar and a Dr. Pepper in hand. So
he's a good old Texas boy.
He's a Texas boy right there.
Yeah.
He loves him some Texas. He likes to shoot, things on the side of the road. Ooh.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she's here being like, "Hey, I recorded the thing last night. Let me help." And he's like, "No, go away."
Oh.
And this just what was he expecting? He orchestrated, put it in the paper to ask for help, and somebody offers it, and he's like, "I work alone." I don't know what he wanted.
He was expecting someone to show up with 3 chainsaws that he could, take into an abandoned mine shaft, and
you're getting ahead of yourselves, guys.
Commandeer. Yeah.
We'll get to that.
But he works alone.
Yeah, he works alone, so she can't help. And then Stretch leaves there. And it's like, all right, cool, I can't be here, so I guess I'll go to the chili cook-off, where she sits down with LG, who is the what is he like? He's the technician, the
radio jockey.
Yeah.
Sure. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And he built her a fry house. She does not seem interested. Very sad.
Yeah, we got this beautiful, panning out scene of LG's hands and a giant house stack of fries.
Yeah.
Like Lincoln Logs. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
That wasn't even in my notes to bring it up, because when I first watched the movie, I was like, the fry house isn't that important. But then I was like, that fry house is such a
kind of
weird
important.
choice. I need to talk about it. But then after the fry house, they get up to go, I think that during this scene, they're kind of having a conversation where she wants to be, doing more important things. She's not happy with her lot in life as a radio DJ who's also, for some reason, reporting on things as well. Because she's here as like reporting on the chili cook-off for some reason, which I don't think is typically part of radio DJ's jobs. But you know,
she's a radio.
It's a small outfit.
Yeah, I guess so. And she's at this, you know, chili cook-off. Who the winner is? Drayton Sawyer, which, to be fair, is a name that means nothing before this point in the franchise. I referred to them as, you know, that name. Our audience goes, I know that name. That's the cook / the old man from the last movie. Yes, because we now see his face and we find out that's him. But yeah, everyone's really excited at the cook-off because apparently he's won tons of years in a row. Like, he is the star. And, you know, he's asked what his secret is. And the secret's the meat. Which,
yeah, the people of, you know, Texas, Oklahoma area just love to eat people, apparently.
I mean, if you don't know you're eating people, it is one of those things, like, you hear about, like people who get accidentally fed, like human meat, like, get, like, addicted to it, because they, like, there's, like, weird chemicals in it. Like, it's basically kind of the same thing, like, with, like, cows. Like, why mad cow disease ended up happening is because the cows who were getting fed, like, cow meat, I'm pretty sure, at least, with them. I know it's a thing with humans. Or at least it is in TV shows and movies, and I might be completely wrong about real science. But, yeah. People get, like, a craving for human meat after they eat it. So
I know I've seen this in Sweeney Todd, so my research.
Yeah,
it must be real.
Here's up this trend.
But, yeah, so people love his, you know, human chili.
Yeah, they sure do.
There's some bones in it that he plays off as being a hard-shelled peppercorn. Might have been a tooth.
Like a straight-up tooth?
Yeah, it might have been a tooth. It's...
Yeah.
There's something in it that shouldn't be there, and he's like, oh, it's peppercorn. And Jim Sedow is still amazing. I love him. He is still eating up the scenes he is in.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
No pun intended.
Nah, maybe there was.
You should have intended.
I intended the pun. Well, let's
okay, that's good.
Okay.
Then we head to Lefty, who heads to the chainsaw store that everyone has in their town. It's a store that pretty much only sells chainsaws. Walls of chainsaws.
Well, it is Texas, Austin.
And logs to try them out on.
I mean, if you had a chainsaw store, that does make sense, actually. To be fair, if a chainsaw store existed, logs to try it out on makes complete sense.
I mean, I guess intuitively that makes sense. I've just never gone to, like, Ace Hardware and witnessed a chainsaw testing log.
All right, now you got a log for me to test the sucker out on?
It's a hardware store. This is a chainsaw store.
You go next time, and I'm just gonna be like, all right, I'm looking for a chainsaw. Now, do you have any logs laying around that I can just, hack away at this?
And then they do, and the guy starts getting really giddy about it.
Oh my days!
But before the owner gets a chance to get really giddy about it, we have a scene of Lefty kind of trying out some chainsaws. He gets one really big silver one, and then two small, like, handheld ones, a red and a yellow one. They're little, like, hand-sized ones. Pretty cool. He's a cool guy. He's got chainsaws. He's, like, awkwardly, like, fighting with them, like, in mock fighting in the store. And, like, the guy's just looking on like, what are you doing? All right. At this point, he seems really confused by him. But then once he goes outside...
Like the kid who picks up a katana at a flea market and starts, like...
Yes.
But instead, it's a man with two chainsaws.
Then the store owner, asks him, like, hey, they got gas in them if you want to try it out. So they go outside to try it out on the log that's there to try it out. Most people, you can tell, like they just cut a little bit. But, Lefty, he wants to make sure this thing can work as a weapon. So he just starts hacking at this thing like you would as a weapon. And the joy on the old man who owns the place's face. He is just excited.
He's so happy that someone finally understands his love for chainsaws.
Maybe.
And
it didn't seem like his wife.
Dennis Hopper is really using these chainsaws improperly. Just it's like little taps. Oh, yeah, great.
It's like just kind of bounces it off.
That's how you use chainsaws. Everyone knows that. No, that's how it works. Then we head to the radio
Station.
Yeah, that's the word. And Lefty's sitting on the steps as Stretch shows up, and he wants her to play the tape, and she's immediately like, "No, I can't do that." And then he just kind of talks to her for like a minute, and she eventually goes, "All right, fine, I'll play it."
All right, I'll do that.
Yeah, I'll do this thing that's almost definitely illegal, just because you asked me to, Mr. Lefty.
After refusing my help previously.
He's just into it. He's like, all right, yeah. I guess because she wants to do bigger things. Gosh darn it!
He cleared his head with some chainsaw practice.
Because that's what radio DJs hope for, is to become investigative journalists. That's like the A to B.
That's the natural progression.
That does check out. I mean,
does it though? No. Like, if she was like a small reporter who had only done like the chili cook-off, I'd get her wanting to play this. But that seemed like a random side gig compared to her just being a radio DJ and seeming to having a lot of fun with it, unless she's just faking it for LG. She seems very into her job. Yeah. She's like having fun, like, "Hey, you're calling in," and she's like just like smiling the whole time. Like, she seems very happy, and no one can see her because it's a radio station, so she could look miserable.
She doesn't have to fake it, yeah.
But she does love LG. We find that out in one line from her later, after she rejects him repeatedly.
Repeatedly.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
But yeah. The reason he wants her to play it, though, is because he wants the cops to take the killings more seriously. Because, he needs some help. So basically, really, Lefty's saying is, I don't want your help, but I want to use you to get actual help. So he is still firm on his no, she can't help, really, if you think about it, actually. He does not want her to. She wants her to just play the tape so the cops will actually help him.
All right.
I don't know. I'm just making stuff up, guys. And then we cut away. First we start with her starting to play it, and then we cut away to Drayton in his little food truck, and he's singing about being number one. Once again, just killing the scene because he's Jim Sedow and he's amazing, and I love him. It's a shame that the man passed away back in 2003, and I never had a chance to even I was 6. I had no chance to have ever seen anything he was in while he was alive. But yeah, he is greatly missed. I wish he also had done more in horror. He really only did these 2 movies because he only did 5 acting roles, period. And that honestly baffles me because I think he really was especially that first movie, was the standout performer. I'm surprised that he didn't
shines,
get more roles. I guess he just didn't want it. I guess maybe acting wasn't really what he wanted to do. I don't know.
Fairly possible.
But I love him.
Well, I heard that he did a lot of stage acting.
Maybe that's it. He didn't want to do this fake acting on camera. He's only a real actor. But yeah, then he gets a call, presumably from Chop Top. We don't know at this point who it is. It's definitely not Leatherface, and I don't know who else would be calling him to tell him that, hey, they caught us. But yeah, he gets a call. It's all from Drayton's side. He's like, what are they? What? And he turns to the radio station to hear the killings on Stretch's show, and he gets very angry because they blew it. Why did you do that? He has a good thing going right now. He gets them to kill people. He makes a lot of money selling it in chili.
Other foods, as we hear later. Yeah. Eyeball pate and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then in this next scene, we cut back to her playing. I think it's a little bit later in the day, and LG's gonna leave. And he wants to take Stretch for some coffee, but she rejects him, and he leaves in a huff. He's very angry that she rejected him. He's giving off real incel vibes, but we love him, according to her at the end. So he is played by Lou Perryman, who was the assistant cam op in the first movie. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, okay.
And he does a pretty good job in his weird little character for a guy who I don't think had ever acted before, and I don't know if he acted after. I didn't look him up that much, but he was definitely an assistant cam op before. He was a camera guy who got this role because he was the cam op in the last movie.
That's wild because it doesn't seem awkward at all.
Yeah, no.
It's pretty strong.
Yeah, I'm making fun of his character, but the acting is completely fine. Like, LG as a character, I'm kind of like, that guy's a loser. But as like Lou Perryman does a great job as LG. He did a good job playing this, especially as someone who didn't have a lot of acting experience. Stretch then gets a phone call, but there's no one there. It's just silence while she's waiting for Lefty to show up. Then she hears some noises, so she goes into the front room of the radio station, where she meets Chop Top, who is played by Bill Moseley. Who, fun fact about Bill Moseley, he got the job because he had made a fan film called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And apparently it was like some sort of comedy 20-minute fan film thing that somehow his boss found out he did it and was like, hey, give it to me, I work in the same building as Toby Hooper, I'll give it to him. And he did, and in that movie he plays as a cameo at the end. He plays the hitchhiker for a scene and does apparently a really good impression of him. So Toby Hooper was like, hey, no, Toby Hooper's like, hey, if we ever do another one, I'll get you in it. And then 2 years later, he cast him as Chop Top, the twin brother of the hitchhiker.
Hey, I was fixing to say, I thought that the guy we're now calling Chop Top, I don't remember if they call him that in the movie or not. I thought that was just the hitchhiker.
Do they?
As time progressed. But...
No, it's Chop Top. I mean, yeah, he's Chop Top. He's his brother, because he also couldn't have been in the last movie because he was in Vietnam getting the plate.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Spoiler alert, he has a plate in his head. You'll find out in a scene.
Yeah, very shortly.
I mean, it's actually another 5 minutes or so of him being creepy in the actual movie. In our notes, it won't take that long, but he does such a good job being creepily funny. I love Bill Moseley in this movie. I love Chop Top. He's super creepy and darkly comedic, and he starts just picking at his head with this metal hanger.
Coat hanger.
He heats it up with his lighter and then picks at his head and then eats it.
It's it's.
Yeah, little, snack, because he loves that good old human flesh taste.
Apparently.
Oh, dangerous.
Then he, asks her for a tour of the place, and she starts, giving him a little bit of a tour, and, it's, once again, a very, darkly comedic scene of her just showing him things on her desk, being like, look, it's this, oh, it's Mr. Shark, and it's just, he's like, oh, Mr. Shark, his reactions to every weird thing she says is just, oh, I love him. That's gonna be most of this movie, is me just saying, oh, I love this character. And then Leatherface shows up, and I'm like, oh, he's Leatherface, he's okay. The star, whatever.
I mean, there's some funny scenes with Leatherface.
Leatherface does. I like Leatherface. I respect. I think it's Bill Johnson who plays him in this. I respect. He did a great job. I'm just making a joke. It's hard to shine in a movie or to be the standout when you have both Bill Moseley and Jim Sedow just eating up every scene they're in,
and Dennis Hopper
and Caroline Williams maybe doesn't eat up every scene, but she also yells in a lot of her scenes, so it's it's hard to see Leatherface in the corner there. But he's there soon. But yeah, then once again we get another kind of creepy part of the scene is she's after that part of the tour, she's like, all right, goodbye, and he says goodbye back to her in proceedingly more comical ways, not catching the cue from her, oh, goodbye. And she says it 3 times the last time, yelling at him, and he's like, oh, goodbye. He doesn't. Yeah. It's. I don't want to keep saying that because that's not interesting. But man, do I especially this scene. I like him throughout the whole movie, but this first radio scene, working off of working back and forth with Caroline Williams. Oh, he does such a great job. But then it eventually the conversation after he doesn't take the hint from the goodbye, they walk up to the record vault, and he's like, oh, what's that? It's like, oh, it's the record vault. It's like, oh, what did he say? The golden oldies?
The golden oldies.
Yeah. And then lights pop on, Leatherface runs out with his chainsaw, and accidentally hits Chop Top in the head, knocking off his wig, revealing his plate in his head that is just open there because he's been picking at it so much, eating it.
And eating the skin, dude, yeah.
Fun fact about the commitment, I guess, from Bill Moseley is the makeup people were like, hey, you know, it'll save us a lot of time if you like just shave your head for this role, and he's like, all right, cool, and then just shaved his head so they didn't have to like as much prosthetics on his head. So yeah, he has his head is actually shaved. I don't think the plate is real, from my understanding. I think he does not really have a gaping plate on his head. I don't know, he has hair now, so I can't tell you for sure. No, I can't. I will confirm that he is not. Yeah. So, and then after he does that, like, once again, Bill Moseley once again just all his dialogue is so funny because he's just like, oh, you dented my plate, you're gonna make me go back to the VA hospital with a dented plate, like all this stuff, and just like he's just whining about it.
The embarrassment of a dented plate.
Yeah. Then while and this is all actually, most of this complaining though is all to himself because Leatherface has already like gone chasing Stretch, so he's just yelling, complaining to himself like, oh, he's gonna have to buy me a new plate cover. Like, he's just, oh, I love him. But now he's not in the scene, so let's talk about Leatherface, who tries to break into the room where Stretch is locked herself in. I believe there was kind of a cool callback here as she closes the door because it is a metal door in this building. Which
the sliding metal door.
Yeah. And it's called back to the first movie. She locks the door and he can't get in. He's trying, but his chainsaw does not work on a metal door.
Crazy. Good thought.
Which he should know better than anybody. But.
You're right, he should know that. But he doesn't. So he stops. Wait, I jumped a little bit, sorry. Then after he does that, we head to outside. His LG shows up with some coffee. And he comes in, so I guess, he's like, she said she didn't want to go get coffee, I'll bring her coffee. He does not take no for an answer, this LG man. So he comes back with the coffee and walks in as Chop Top is just throwing records around. He's like, he freaks out about it because, why is this guy in their building destroying the records? And then as they're having a little bit of an argument, Leatherface comes running back in and like knocks him down with the chainsaw, and then Chop Top just starts bashing his head in for like the next 2 scenes basically. There is so much blood all over the floor, but somehow LG does survive this part of it. Don't ask how.
Somehow.
He is still alive later in the movie. He should definitely be.
Every time Chop Top is bashing in LG's head, he's delivering these really corny one-liners.
Yeah. And fun fact about those, I told Chris the fact that was actually wrong because I watched the documentary about it. There was like 8 or 9 takes with Bill Moseley here, being like, and he's like eventually like, Toby, what am I doing wrong? And Toby's like, oh, you're not doing anything wrong. I just really like watching you do this. So he made Chop Top Bill do like 8 or 9 takes just because he was really enjoying watching it.
Like the opposite of Kubrick, the other end of the horseshoe.
Yeah.
It's like, we're gonna do this 100 times. Because they're all great.
Yeah, I love every one of them.
I want it to continue.
Yeah. I had it finished by Dr. Pepper yet. I was enjoying this.
Piling up cans of Dr. Pepper.
Oh, man.
Then we head back to Leatherface, who tries to break in the room some more, but he stops. And then he kind of stops for a second, and you get this moment of where you're like, oh no, where's he gone? And Stretch has that moment you see like in her face, like kind of like, why has it gone silent? And then he bursts through the door. Oh, not the door, the wall.
Like the Kool-Aid man. Yes, the wall. Yeah.
And then we get a really weird scene, but also a funny and dark and like feels like it has a lot to say. Maybe like there's a lot of like interpretations you could have of it. I don't know if I'm going to get into them, but they're there. But yeah. So he busts in and she lands like on the ice chest, like the open like not ice chest, but like just the tub where they have ice and a bunch of drinks. It's not an ice chest would have like a top on it. It doesn't have a top. So she's just sitting on the ice, and he just starts chainsawing the ice right in front of her, like right between her legs, as like the shot is like a low angle camera shot, like on the like tub of ice, like looking up at her. And it is very sexual in nature. Like, it is very, like, I don't know the word to describe it. Like, it's very suggestive. I guess that's the word that I couldn't think of.
Yeah.
As she just keeps telling, like, she eventually gets to the point where she's just, like, freaking out, and she eventually starts telling him that, you know, she keeps telling that he's so good. Like, you're good with that. Like, and it's very, I don't know, like, scene's just, I like this scene, but it's hard to explain it in words. And so, yeah, then eventually he stops using the chainsaw and kind of just rubs it up her leg for a little bit. And eventually, like, gets right at her crotch, and she keeps being like, oh, you're good. And, like, he starts getting really, like, into the fact that she's saying it's good. And eventually, kind of around the point of maybe, you know, presumably almost a climax on his face, he pulls the chainsaw back and starts revving it. And she runs away before he's able to do anything to her right there. And then he also runs out of the room and just starts destroying the actual, like, where the actual radio stuff happens. Yeah. Like an office or something like that. And now he destroys that whole room, as well as then just, you know, humps the air in case you didn't get the, you know, messaging they were trying to go there, as he, like, humps the air with his chainsaw. The chainsaw is his penis. Get it? Okay.
Yeah.
He is at his sexual awakening in this
radio studio.
Yeah, radio studio, like, snack supply room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He then leaves and goes, and Chop Top asks him if, you know, he got her, you get her, you get that bee, and, like, all this. Once again, Chop Top just delivering his lines in a way that only Bill Moseley can, and just once again, just some great, like, comedy from, like, Leatherface, like, shaking his head like yes, and then like a high five, like, okay,
high five.
Yeah.
A little bit before this also is the line from Chop Top, "Dog will hunt."
That is true.
That's in Jerry Was a Race Car Driver by Primus.
This is
a very tiny fun fact. But, yeah.
They also wrote the South Park theme song. Did you know that? That's Primus Podcast.
Primus fans know that real Primus fans know that, and they've heard it hundreds of times.
Yeah. Then they drag LG's body out of the building. Then Chop Top runs back in, though, to grab LG's hat. Just thought it was, you know, it's funny. He comes back in, grabs the hat, puts it on, and leaves. And then Stretch kind of comes out and realizes that, like, oh crap, what happened? And, like, watches them leave, and she's really mad that Lefty isn't there yet, but, you know, she knows that she can't let them get away, so she hops in her Jeep and follows them.
Yeah.
And we get a couple minute scene of her following them before they end up at the Texas Battleland, which is going to be our setting for the rest of this movie, which is like a abandoned theme park that's all underground. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it's cool looking.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense, but it does look cool.
It looks cool, so just deal with it. So Stretch then gets scared by a car that drives up, and that is, you know, pretty obviously it came up behind her, and, like, you can see the man's cowboy hat in the frame of the car. Yeah. You think she might figure out who it is, or, you know,
he's driving up on her.
Or, hear me out, as we see later in the scene, Lefty could have, like, opened the window, say, "Hey, it's me, Lefty." No, he wants her to be scared for a little bit, as he kind of
like bears down on her.
Chases her in this car,
follows her through the little, like, weird hoop tunnel.
Yeah, they kind of look like dinosaur bones almost. Like, it's, I don't know why it's there. It's cool. Once again, it's cool looking. So he chases her through that for a little bit before he gets out. Once she's a little bit further away, like, she stops. She's running for a while, but then she stops and she sees the truck stop, so she doesn't want to get too close to Leatherface and Chop Top. So she stops, and then Lefty gets out and is like, "Hey, it's me." And she's like, "Oh." And everything ends happy right there. No, actually, good old trapdoor ex machina is there under her.
Yeah. Exactly where she stopped.
Yeah. That's where you put your trapdoors. And she falls through the trapdoor. Not all the way yet. She is currently holding on to a,
root?
Like a root, yeah. And then Lefty runs up and he tries to...
Something much flimsier.
Yeah.
A rotting human limb.
Yeah, he tries to pull her back up with a rotting arm, and it breaks.
Yeah.
And then she falls into, like, reverse Wonderland, She is Alice for this story. She just kind of falls first through this hole and then down a slide and then eventually just hits some ground that then breaks down and she falls even further. Like, she is just like 3 or 4 stories underground now. So once again, don't know what this is supposed to have been, but it happened.
The underground battle of San Jacinto.
Oh.
Yeah, underground battle of San Jacinto.
Everybody knows that's how it happened.
Yeah.
Sure.
The mole people came to take. Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is a cool setting, whatever it is.
Yeah. Once again, like, I'm only gonna complain about it here. Like, I could technically choose to complain about it the rest of the movie because that's where we're gonna be the rest of the movie. But I just want to complain about it here because it really does make 0 sense. I don't care though. That's another thing. It makes 0 sense, but I had fun because it looks really weird and cool. So it was a cool setting. So if that's a complaint though from someone, I respect it and understand it. Then we have Lefty after that reacting by running to grab his chainsaws. He suits up with them, gets them all equipped, and he runs into the building screaming.
Until he gets to the gate, which he gently opens.
Well, yeah.
And then he runs a little bit more.
Of course.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to destroy the gate of the place you're about to go into.
Yeah. Inside, he
demolish.
finds a mural dripping some blood, so he kicks the wall and he opens it up, and there's entrails.
It comes flowing out
coming
like
down
a
slide.
river.
It looks like, I don't think we're supposed to realize that, but like if you look at the other shot, it looks like there's like a slide that like sends it out, so it actually fell out like that. That's the entrail slide. It goes up against the wall. That's what you do with it. That's where you put your.
Used to be a
entrails.
big attraction.
Yeah.
When the park was
Texas
open.
Battlelands. Come on down to Texas Battleland. We got an entrail slide.
The Oregon slide.
Yeah. The Oregon slide. Oh man. Yeah. Also, keep in mind that this is on the first level, and like they do all their butchering at the like a base level, which is presumably like 3 or 4 stories down. So they're carrying entrails up, I guess, 3 stories from an underground, and stuffing it in a wall.
Maybe it's not their entrails. Maybe someone else did that. We already discussed this. That was part of the theme park.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's not theirs. That's unrelated.
Some have an aquarium. Some have a wall of organs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did I leave off?
Kicks the
Entrails.
wall open. Entrails.
He then screams
Entrails
about
Ex
bringing
Machina.
it down. We forgot to mention that. This is the first time we hear him screaming about bringing it down. He starts chainsawing the beams.
I'm gonna bring it all down to hell.
Yeah, I don't know if he says bring it down to hell in this scene. He doesn't. One of the many times we cut back to him yelling about bringing it down.
He decides to piously bring it down.
Yeah.
Like with a prayer. And,
Yeah.
devoted.
Our next
devoted to
scene,
hell.
I have written down here, Trayton and Chop Top have a funny back and forth. I don't remember what it's about, but just once again, they're 2 characters I love, and they're just kind of probably, without remembering exactly what the scene is, it's probably Drayton trying to, talk about business, and Chop Top being a complete insane person. And that was probably the scene. Or if it wasn't this scene, it was the next 10 scenes. But yeah. Then we have cut to Stretch, who is watching as Leatherface starts to electric knife the clothes off of LG. It's in a scene that's kind of, once again, comical. It looks like him, he like kind of holds it up like you would his chainsaw, but it's, this little electric knife.
Tiny. He's about to carve the turkey for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So
Like that it's a living man.
yeah, he cuts off his clothes, but not his boxers, which the guy in the documentary LG thought was very weird. He's like, I'll do it naked. I don't really want to, but like, why wouldn't they cut off my boxers? But Toby Hooper's like, nah, we'll just leave them on. So yeah, and yeah, he's like skinning them, like ripping off pieces of skin after piece of skin. Then
Ripping off his heart. He's using the electric knife.
yeah,
He's being very careful about it.
that's true. He then cuts off
his face.
What was that? Sorry.
He takes off his face.
Yeah.
Among other skins.
He cuts off his face and he brings over to Stretch, who accidentally revealed herself. But then he's about to like kill her she tells him that's no good. So he stops, because he kind of likes her. As we saw.
Yeah, he's got a little
A little bit of a crush on her. Bubba's got a girlfriend, you know what I'm saying? Like, also, he's called Bubba a lot throughout this. Apparently that's his family name, His name is not actually Leatherface. Yeah.
They kind of all call each other Bubba. I mean...
Do they?
Don't they, right?
I thought they all call him Bubba. But I could be
they
wrong.
just call him Bubba.
Yeah, I think
This is him,
Bubba.
okay.
Yeah. I think his character's name is also Bubba, apparently, at least in this movie. Once again, continuity is a weird thing when it comes to this franchise, so who knows if he's ever called Bubba again.
That's what the family calls him when it's not Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the first one.
Yeah, well, then he's just your brother.
Or Leatherface.
Did they ever call him?
Yeah, they call him Leatherface in this one.
Nah. Maybe Leatherface eventually said he didn't like it, okay?
Movie.
And they respected him enough to be like, all right, fine, sorry. We'll have it back. You're the only one who's willing to cut the meat, so we'll let you have it. But yeah, he's about to like hit her with the cleaver before she says no good, so he stops, and then Drayton and Chop Top almost catch him with Stretch, but they kind of leave as Stretch's Leatherface kind of like holds up the face, and they're like, oh, okay, it's just Leatherface being Leatherface. Well, okay. And then they like, there's a moment where Drayton's just kind of like, I don't remember exactly what he says, but it's basically like, okay, whatever, Leatherface, and like just leaves him. And then once they leave, he, does what you do to hide her. He puts LG's bloody face on top of her, as she's like, but it's wet, and he still puts it on her, and then also,
like flips it around.
Yeah. And to finish the ensemble, though, he puts LG's hat on her. He wants to make sure she looks the part.
And then they dance around.
Yeah, he kind of forces her to dance. In a once again very like at first it's like you start like he's kind of just like shaking her arms, and you're like, oh, okay, and then he like just straight up picks her up and they like start like full dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then after that, Leather hears Lefty's chainsaw, so he ties up Stretch and then leaves to go see what's going on. Then a partially skinned LG comes back too and spits, because that's his character trait we saw earlier that I didn't mention because it didn't matter then.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But
there was a hilarious part when he's getting hammered in the head, and he's like, oh, and he like spits in Chop Top's face, like
that was great.
Final moments.
Well, no, not final moments. Apparently,
yeah, final.
He's still alive.
These are his final moments.
He's still alive somehow. Yeah.
You see now that they were not final. Yeah.
And then he kind of like screams in pain for a little bit, which really freaks out Stretch, because this is
he has no
loves
face.
him, as we're about to find out, and he's all messed up.
Yeah, just a little bit.
And then with like kind of his like last bit of energy, like all barely able to do it, he he takes a knife and like frees Stretch, and then falls down, and he makes some sort of like joke, multiple jokes. Like at one point he just says poop. I'm not gonna say the bad word. They were a PG channel, but he also makes some sort of pun about how like what was the pun? I just wrote down.
He's like, I'm going to pieces on you or something like that. Falling apart on you.
Yeah, I think it's falling apart on you. Something of that.
Aside from like those jokes, if the more you think about it, like this is you don't have to think about it that much. It's a really dark scene where he wakes up and sees his own face on somebody else.
Yeah,
that's
because this is a
quite
horror
disturbing,
movie, guys.
Like,
it is also a comedy, but it is also a horror movie. Yes, this is a dark horror comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just one of the legitimately like a lot of the other horror in the movies. Just somebody's getting chopped up. This one is you're gonna see your own face.
Yeah. Before
you die.
Fair.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't think of any thematic significance to it, frankly. I don't know. We get to our opinions at the end.
Fair. Then after that, she puts LG's face back on him. She's like, "No, here you go. You lay to rest with your face on."
Yeah.
And he puts his hat on his chest to cover up the giant chest wound he has. Which, once again, the makeup on him is great. It looks really cool. It looks like, I believe that specific one wasn't done by Tom Savini. It was done by like someone else on his team. But just like the detail and like the musculature and stuff is like really crazy and not what you'd expect for random skinned horror movie guy. But it is. And then as he's dying, he dies, she says, "LG, I loved you." It's like, did you though? Because all we saw was you didn't.
Keeping him at arm's length. Yeah.
Which, like, that's fine. Like, I'm not trying to say, like, she had to love him because he loved her. No, that's fine. Like, let's be honest, they were...
It's a bit out of the blue, though.
They were co-workers. It was kind of weird for him to make advances in the first place. It might be inappropriate in the first place. Like, but sure, like, she rejected him repeatedly. He tried to offer her a fry house. Tried to buy her coffee. Doesn't want any of it.
Offer her a fry house?
He does. He, like, says it's for you.
She's burned to the fry house,
He does
man.
say, like, oh, it's for you. Or something like that. And then...
Yeah. I built you a fry house.
Then probably spits.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she loves him apparently the whole time. Definitely the whole time. Then Stretch kind of just leaves the room because she's now free. So she goes and she watches as Drayton reprimands Leatherface for cutting down the house because he's blaming he heard a chainsaw. He felt like the building start to rumble, so he's blaming Leatherface because. I mean, that makes sense, actually. Can't blame Drayton for that one. That does seem like something Leatherface might do.
Also, what he did to that door in the last movie.
Look what your brother did to the door! And my brother! Because we're all brothers, I guess, maybe.
As they reveal in this movie, for some reason.
Once again, I don't remember anything happening, but...
There is one line at the dinner table that we'll get to.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So, it is... canon that they are brothers.
It is made explicit. Yeah.
And then he compares what they're going. Starts complaining, not comparing. He starts just complaining about how they're going to lose money. This is kind of that first scene where we really kind of get his running bit throughout the rest of the movie is just complaining about the plight of the small businessman, which I feel like maybe was like the most commentary that was even in this movie, but it wasn't. Like the last movie, like you could definitely say, like, oh, here's the commentary on the meat industry. This one is like the villain is complaining about real complaints someone might have,
like taxes.
Yeah, it's like I don't. This is like I guess maybe the moral of this story is even the worst people in the world also hate taxes. So I guess that means they're that bad that even if Drayton would hate them, that means that I don't know. I'm not. But yeah, that is his kind of character trait is that he hates taxes. And hates what's happening to the small businessman.
I guess another way to look at it, I mean, that could be valid. An equally valid way to look at it might be that here's a guy who makes his money killing people. He's complaining that he has to pay property taxes on a place that he does not even probably legally own. Like they're squatting out in an abandoned property. Anyway, it's like, oh, the property taxes will drive you out of business. So, I mean, whether or not one agrees with it, what jumped out to me was like, a greedy the typical greedy businessman commentary of like, this guy is filthy rich on cannibalism, and he's talking about how like he's, fighting an uphill battle against the government to do it. Like, so,
and while this happens, Chop Top is just dancing with Nubbins, just dancing around with Nubbins, being a goofball. I don't think he says anything in this scene, or I probably would have wrote it down. So, then we head back to Lefty, who is screaming about bringing it all down. We cut back to Drayton, and Drayton yells about taxes. This is maybe this is the first time he mentions taxes specifically. Then Chop Top tells him to sell it. Before then, doing a really silly voice for Nubbins, who. Yeah, reacts to some, and then they both, like him and Nubbins, him pretending to be Nubbins, react to some sparks they see.
Created by presumably
Lefty
/ maybe somehow Stretch.
Maybe, yeah.
While she's hiding out above them, trying to escape.
But they're just he's being a goofball. Chop Top hanging out with his brother Nubbins, some good old brotherly bonding. Chop Top and Nubbins.
They're bonded. Yeah. Inseparable.
Then after that, Chop Top sings a song called Nomland. As he does his own pyrotechnics by shooting a fire extinguisher into the air. Like he's just singing about Nomland. It's kind of
his alternative idea for what they should use their property for here.
That's what they should be doing now. Yes, you're right. I forgot.
A theme park called Nom.
I forgot about why it was called. Why this stupid song? I just love the stupid song. I didn't remember why. You're right. This was his idea for what they should do now that obviously the how is Leatherface ruined the other business. Let's do my business now. Let's do Nomland.
Yeah. He's like, oh, you boys are putting me out of business. He's like, I know what to do, Dad. Or not Dad.
I don't think he says
that. Yeah.
I mean, he might. Who knows? Chop Top's weird.
That was like, there was a fraction of Bobby Hill in that impression, so disregard it. But yeah, he's just Nomland.
Also, I didn't mention it when it happened, but I just want to mention it here because I did think it was hilarious when he does it. One of the times when they walk in on them, while Leatherface is dealing with Stretch, Bill Moseley does a perfect impression of Drayton.
Yes.
I forgot to mention when it happened, but he just comes in oh, I don't remember exactly what he says, but it's once again some sort of thing about taxes or money, because that's Drayton's character in this movie, and it's great. Bill
it is
Moseley,
really good. Yeah,
he does a really good Drayton impression, or Jim Sedow, I guess. But it's it was a while ago. I shouldn't have brought it up here. I just forgot to mention it, and I wanted to bring it up because we were talking about other Bill Moseley as Chop Top weird antics of Nomland. Then Drayton sees Stretch. He doesn't realize that it's Stretch, but he sees something move, and then he tells Leatherface to go investigate it. But Leatherface, he actually first is Leatherface, did you see that? Leatherface starts to shake his head, and then he goes, no.
No. Yes.
Yeah, he back and forth, yes to no. There is some great head acting from Leatherface in this movie, because he doesn't have a lot of lines, but he does do a lot of funny things like this, the way he shook his head earlier with when Chop Top asked him if he killed Stretch, and then there's another scene later that we will definitely get to when we get when it happens, because I love that scene. But he does a lot of really good little facial reactions and acting little head.
Yes, he does have good facial reactions. Yeah.
But yeah, so he then goes to eventually goes to look for her. Then Chop Top and Nubbins say they should all run away. They should just all leave. Then we cut to Lefty, who finds the corpse of Franklin, who still has a working flashlight 13 years later. Well, it only works for a couple seconds.
Well, for 3 seconds, yeah.
It's also not even the same type
miracle
of
it turns on at all.
Yeah. It also was the wrong type of flashlight, I believe, if I remember.
Compared to the last one, yeah, the last one was silver.
Not one of those handle
it
ones,
was the camping ones more so. Not this one, which is just a...
They also, they said that they were in a Volkswagen in this movie, but it was Ford in the last one, but trivialities.
I didn't even notice that. Crazy. I would have just assumed that was a Volkswagen because it just gave off that Volkswagen van vibe to it.
The groovy bus vibe, yeah.
Then Lefty, 13-year-old, and then he, of course, he then starts to chainsaw some beams and yell some more, because that's mostly what Dennis Hopper does in this movie.
Yeah,
a lot of yelling.
Yeah. We then head to Stretch, who I don't know what word that was supposed to be. She's in a tunnel of she's in running. It says runs. Okay. Runs through a tunnel of Christmas lights, chandeliers and skeletons and funny poses. This scene actually specifically had all those lights and stuff in it because they had this actual tunneling they were going to film this scene in. They needed some sort of way to light a quarter mile of tunneling to be able to film what his vision was, because you can't hide lights in it very well. So they just filled it with a bunch of Christmas lights and chandeliers and just made it really bright in the room naturally. And that was I believe an idea that came from the production designer Carrie White. That, we're, as you saw last week, as I acknowledged it, we're a more refined podcast now. I'm going to try to give every person who does something that I like in the movie credit. If you did something I like, I can't you're the composer? I didn't remember what music was in this movie. I didn't write you down. Sorry.
Nomland.
Yeah.
The one that came up with the Christmas lights?
Yeah.
Front and center.
Yeah. Good old Carrie White. We respect you. So yeah, she runs through that for a while. until she runs into a chainsaw wielding Leatherface. So she then has to like run the other direction, back away from him for a while, before a fallen beam from something Lefty's doing stops in front of her and stops the chase. And then Stretch kind of like breaks up with Leatherface. She's basically like, it's not me, it's you.
Yes.
This isn't gonna work.
Not working out. Yeah.
Which I thought was a really weirdly like funny scene. I was like, wait, why is she breaking up with, like, according to her,
Was there something there?
Like, yeah, like, wait, was there like a mutual thing at one point? Did we miss something?
Oh, she just didn't want to lead him on, you know.
Yeah, she's being considerate.
I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, after she does that, Drayton, Chop Top, and Nubbin show up. And Chop Top starts. There's a little bit of conversation of them being like, "Oh, what happened here? Why is she here? Who is this person? She must be the one who's cutting down the whole house." And then Chop Top's like, "No, she's the the radio station person. Leatherface. Bubba said he killed her. Guess he didn't." And he starts singing about how Bubba's got a girlfriend.
Oh no, he definitely acknowledges that they killed her earlier.
Right. Guess we'll have to kill her again.
Oh yeah.
Well, we killed her the first time, but I guess we'll have to kill her again.
I think he even says like Leatherface will have to kill her again. Like it's like he's just like, oh, Leatherface killed her the first time, he can do it again.
Yeah. They definitely acknowledge the fact that they already killed her.
Yeah, and he sings his second hit song of the the Chop Top album that's coming out. We got Nomland and Bubba's Got a Girlfriend. And
then Leatherface is kind of like sheepishly like,
oh, what?
Yeah, I mean,
oh, come on, guys.
Yeah,
he actually like specifically, there's like this reaction, like he's looking at her kind of like a family, am I right? Kind of a vibe to it. And you're like, what are you doing? What?
Family. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, he's ashamed of the Saw. He's like, stop it! She's not my girlfriend, okay? She broke up with me.
It's a go.
Then Drayton says it's all about SCEX harmonica playing.
I think it's the most explicitly you've spelled it out, short of just directly.
I didn't spell it out right because the joke was that he spelled it out wrong. He says SCEX.
Well, yes.
Drayton then warns Leatherface that harmonica playing is a swindle. But once again, all these little lines from him are a lot funnier when you use the word that actually starts with an S, not harmonica playing. But hey, just deal with it.
Yeah, it's harmonica playing or the chainsaw.
Yeah. Well, no.
Yeah.
And then Chop Up and Drayton want him to kill Stretch, but he can't do it. Then Drayton gives him the ultimatum, harmonica or the saw. He then says that harmonica, well, nobody knows about that, which I just think is a, like, all right. And, like, I guess you don't know about that, but I feel like you exist, so someone knows about it.
Oh, they were all, immaculately conceived.
Immaculately conceived.
From the great Chainsaw Grandma.
And then
and Grandpa, who's still kicking and
it's true
and conceiving. I guess this is why they decided to make him a brother, when it would have been so much easier in the first one to just make him the dad. Like,
maybe
this is the only the best reason I can think of where they decided, okay, we don't want to like give this guy a plausible reason to. I mean, have ever played harmonica before?
That's creepy. Jim, see that playing harmonica? No, I'm okay. I'd rather not. I'd rather not think about that. And then he says that the Saw is family.
Mm.
Where did I? Oh, okay. And then after then Chop Top, he knocks out Stretch, and then she wakes up to this movie's dinner scene. Woo! It was absolutely terrifying in the first movie. Let's do it not as well. Woo!
Yep.
Yeah.
The only thing they do very well is it opens.
Doo-doo.
Doo-doo. Oh.
Gosh, guys. She wakes up. As she wakes up, we get this really, like, I think Drayton's kind of talking to her during the scene. We get this really beautiful like long crane shot that like starts close up on her and like goes all the way back without breaking, like past the really long table, another like 15-20 feet maybe. So this is that moment where I will bring up the director of photographer Richard Corus, because congrats, you did a really cool shot in this scene, and I assume that was probably you, not the director, who came up with that shot, because that kind of a shot feels very the cinematographer, director of photography guy, not the like important like scene kind of thing that a director would be more in charge of. Then Chop Top and Leatherface bring in the now 137-year-old grandpa.
Oh, kicking somehow.
Yep. Well, somehow his all liquid diet. They've said it in 2 movies, Chris. Pay attention.
Keeps him fresh to the rose.
Yeah.
It has been 100% said how it happens. He only drinks blood, and he's 137 years old. I assume.
You know what? I'll say it somehow still. I'll say it.
No.
It doesn't make sense.
No.
I'll say it.
No, you're wrong. Drayton then tells her grandpa's like work history. That's it. I mean, he goes on for a little while, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Drayton then makes Leatherface prep Stretch to be killed by Grandpa, but Leatherface doesn't really want to, so he just, steals a kiss as you do. Oh wait, no, you don't do that. That was wrong, Leatherface.
Yeah.
She just broke up with you. Before she broke up with you, mixed signals, maybe. But now, she said no.
It was clear.
Yeah, she clearly broke up with
Also, she's a hostage that you're about to kill and eat. Something else to consider.
He doesn't want to, though. Leatherface doesn't want to kill her. Leatherface is very reluctant in killing her because he thinks he found his love.
Yeah.
Then he does eventually bring her over, and Stretch kind of just screams throughout this like whole rest of the movie. It never like gets to the point where I really found it too annoying to enjoy the movie, but I have heard that as a complaint about this movie, and I can't really argue against it. She does kind of like yeah, Final Girl screaming is a thing. Like, I get that. Like, it happens in movies. But this is
situation.
a little bit more than I feel like normal. Like, she doesn't really even have dialogue for the most part for the rest of the movie. It's just screaming. But, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mention it earlier, but it happens another occasion in the freezer specifically when, like Leatherface is sawing at the door and she's just screaming. Despite the fact that it's like very clearly not doing anything to the door. She just screams because she hears the chainsaw on the door.
Fair point.
And that continues for like another 5 minutes. But yeah, it's definitely a fair complaint.
Yeah.
If it was a complaint somebody had.
Counter complaint.
Counter.
Obviously, it's different because her screaming isn't even verbal. But the other 2 characters that speak in this scene, the cook and Chop Top, are yelling the entire time at each other, like, forever.
It's fair.
That's all they do. So that was something that definitely stood out to me. It was like, man, there's just, like, there are no dips or troughs or anything in, like, the energy of the room. It's just these 2 guys whooping and hollering at each other until they're out of the movie. So
that's definitely fair. I will also add here, this is the second time I watched this movie, and the first time I watched this movie, I hated the second half. So if you didn't love the second half, watch it again. You might actually enjoy it more, like, just as general. Like, that's something that happened for me, at least. Like, I remember, like, my first time I watched the movie, when I've been watching horror movies lately, I do, like, really brief, like, 1-sentence reviews as, like, on this, like, spreadsheet I have to, like, remember my thoughts on all the movies I watched. And the first time I watched it, I was like, I really liked, like, the first half of this movie. Man, I love Chop Top in the first half, but man, that second half dragged and I hated him. And then I watched this the second time, and I loved, like, every joke he had in the second half still. Like, so, I don't know. That's just my personal experience. You might come away hating the movie more if you watch it again, because that's how it works, But, yeah, so they do definitely. Bringing that up wasn't just random. It is me acknowledging that, yes, Chop Top just yells the second half of this movie, which I found very annoying the first time I watched it, but enjoyed it the second half. Second time I rewatched it, so yeah, she yells a lot too. So get used to that. I mean, not really, because we're not going to do it. So I guess you don't have to get used to it if you're just listening to our review, because I'm not going to bring up she yells again, because she's just yelling throughout the rest of this movie.
Well, not the rest. She gets knocked out in the very near future.
That is true. For like a minute.
Yeah.
And then she starts yelling again. Where did it go?
Leatherface reluctantly brings what's her name, Stretch, to the other end to Grandpa, so that he can, give her the good old bonkin, and we can have again a worse recreation of the scene from the first movie, where Grandpa, struggles to hold a hammer.
Yeah, I will say I did like once again I didn't like most of this part of the scene because once again I've seen it done but better. But the two things they added in that were different that I did like was he does like lick his ladle as well as then lick Chop Top's hook, like little hanger, which I thought both those were funny. But once again, it's for the most part, haha, he can't hit her. I mean, he eventually does get like one good hit in, but then before he can do another one, Drayton gets tired of it and just knocks her out.
Bonks her.
Yeah. But yeah, in general, that scene, I think the consensus with us is they tried to do the same thing but didn't quite hit it. But, it happens.
Quite hit it.
Haha.
Austin's full of them today, dude.
I didn't mean to do it.
Also, I really feel like, Toby Hooper's really underestimating the power of being hit in the back of the head with a hammer.
Like how many times does it take, you think?
Yeah, multiple people like have it done 2 or 3 times, and then they get up a few minutes later. Whereas I feel like if you get hit like full force with a hammer in the back of the head 2 or 3 times, you're just not going to be alive anymore.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
find
out at our first live show when we hit Chris with a hammer.
Yes. No. I'm saying I will not get up after the second hit.
But see, the thing is, Chris, I think you will. So I'm going to hit you twice with a hammer and find out.
Yeah.
Watch as Austin commits murder live on stage.
Well, I'm going to
this is not a Mythbusters you can do with Ballistic Joe. It's gotta be a real
head. A real person, so we know if the human brain can
Will they get back up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they won't.
IQ test before and after.
I don't know.
Spoiler.
I feel like she only really got like one hit with a hammer that was good. Even Grandpa's one hit was still kind of weak. So she only got one. I'll give you LG's dead. 100%. Chop Top was swinging for the fences, and we saw the blood. Like, LG was dead before his last scene. I agree. I think there is a chance she has CTE for the rest of her life.
But it's kind of a stretch, Austin.
He slapped his knee, audio listeners, because I did not pick up through Discord. We will not hear it, but he did a very pantomime full knee up into the frame, which is normally only chest up if you only listen to the audio version to know how high Isaiah just lifted his knee to slap it.
That's a beautiful word picture.
Thank you. I am an artist. So yeah, she's knocked out now. Then I want to say Chop Top starts singing a little bit after they do it, and then Lefty comes in finishing the same song.
Well, we actually don't hear, but the subtitles clue us in that Lefty starts singing, and that's apparently is echoing through the tunnels, and Chop Top picks that up and starts singing along with him.
That makes sense.
But that is what we actually hear.
I just saw Chop Top starting to sing.
Lefty,
I thought Lefty...
Salvation is at hand.
Yeah. Yeah, so Lefty shows up singing, and then Drayton then tries to buy him off, and Lefty says that he's the Lord of the Harvest, which Drayton hilarious.
Is that some sort of health group?
Yes.
Health food
Looking
group.
off like rival eateries and restaurants and things, like food trucks
Yeah.
that could have been like a chainsaw assassin to kill him. I guess it's the kind of
That's the
high octane world that he's working in the
fear
food
Drayton
industry.
has, is that someone's going to take his money. So
Yeah, Drayton's really just been consumed by late stage capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then Stretch, she comes to. She's a little CTE, but she's okay. And Lefty then chainsaws Drayton in the butt.
Yeah.
Because the small businessman is always going to get it
In the butt.
In the butt.
in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Then we get a chain. Well, first I believe he comes over and like freeze Stretch. I didn't write that down.
Tells her to run.
Yeah, he tells her to run away, sister. He calls her sister like twice, which I thought was a weird thing. Especially because I heard,
Well, he's a
Religious.
I guess. Also, the thing that made it even weirder is, or funnier, I guess, is the initial like script. I don't know if they actually shot any of it. Was that he was supposed to be her illegitimate father as well as part of the story? They decided that made no sense and cut it.
Bit of everybody's got to do the Darth Vader moment.
I guess so. But it is not officially canon. That was just an idea they had that never made it to the final end.
Shoehorn it right in there somewhere.
Yeah. Then Lefty, he gets in a chainsaw fight, which is amazing. Just on paper. Like, I mean, in practice, it's still pretty good, but just the fact that I get to write the words chainsaw fight in my notes is, I'm very happy.
I do remember thinking, this is something that could have been in the last movie. Chainsaw duel, pretty rad. The only problem is that neither of their chainsaws were even given the appearance of moving.
No.
They could have put, just dull regular chains without blades on them and spun those around. They could have even had, puffs of smoke come out. Nothing. We just are treated to very, very good sound effects that are convincing if you, squint and blur your vision. Oh, yeah, those are hitting at the right times. But it's plainly obvious to anybody with, 2010 vision that those chainsaws are not on. They're not moving. They are poking each other with cold metal.
You probably watched an HD cut of this movie, because that's probably the only way you can find it at this point. Which means, I'm not saying that, yes, that is still an issue. I'm not, but it very well, if you're watching this on, maybe in the theater you might be able to notice, but when you're watching this on your VHS copy in 87, you're probably not noticing that on your...
You might have a point there, yeah.
14-inch TV. But I'm not denying that it is still an issue. I personally didn't even notice it, but...
I did, and I also noticed a few other scenes where the chainsaws just weren't on at all, where they were cutting through things. And I was like, yeah, all right.
Guys, it's movie magic.
Beautiful.
Apparently they didn't do a great job with movie magic, but they can't really have chainsaws going, guys. That's dangerous.
Yeah, safety concerns.
You're right. They could have used chainsaws without blades. Sure, they probably should have. But even that still could do damage. Chain burn or something. I don't know.
Well, chains could have popped off and smacked somebody.
Very dangerous. So they went with just having them off.
Yeah,
that makes sense for liability reasons.
Where was I? Then Chop Top starts to chase after Stretch. And then we cut back to the chainsaw fight for a little bit. And around this point, Drayton is once again just complaining about capitalism, as he also realizes how bad his injury is. And
is thinking about also, cutting his losses and calling it quits in the food industry.
Yes. So he starts digging for something that we don't quite know what it is yet in Nubbins' little knapsack.
Corpse.
I mean, Isaiah spoiled it. It's a grenade, but yes.
Yes.
And then we cut back to Lefty, who's
above the table.
Lefty and Leatherface are on the table at this point. And Lefty stabs Leatherface in the gut. Then Lefty pulls out his two little ones.
We get more excellent Tom Savini gore.
Yeah.
That gut stab looks awesome.
And also, another thing that I don't
cool.
even know how... I genuinely still don't even know how they did it. They have in this scene, specifically, when it goes through him, there is at least a shot where you see it spinning on both sides, and they like apparently made some sort of like, you know, like those old arrows through the head kind of thing, but for a chainsaw somehow.
Yes.
Like, and it spins on both sides, and you're like, what? Okay, cool. The special effects team really killed it there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And definitely also killed Leatherface in this movie. Just ignore the fact that he's not dead later in other movies.
But then we get a really cool, like, slapstick Ruth Goldberg machine type event that happens where Grandpa's got his hammer and he chucks it at Lefty and misses Lefty and hits Leatherface in the head.
Yes.
And I think Leatherface drops his chainsaw?
You have skipped a scene, which is why I typically guide the discussion, and then you discuss your thoughts on it.
Wow.
Because you missed, I mean, not that important scene, but this first scene, all we're having is Drayton prepping the grenade. He just holds it, before we then cut back to Stretch and Chop Top for a little bit. As Stretch nails him with a lamp, and it electrocutes him, and that gets her to be able to escape for a little bit. Then we cut back to the awesome Rube Goldberg machine you were talking about, where, yes, Grandpa stands up and tries to throw his, hammer to help his boy Bubba. He wants to help Bubba, but he's old, 137 to be precise.
He's real old.
Yeah.
Quite old.
And yeah, he hits him he ends up hitting Leatherface in the head, which knocks Leatherface down onto the table, which hits Drayton in the head, which makes him drop the grenade and kill all of them, presumably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job, Grandpa. You did it.
Yeah, Grandpa helped. You know what they say about Grandpa? He's the best at killing. He killed 4 men at once.
Yeah, that's true. With one hammer, all at the same time.
It's impressive, really.
Just one hit. That's all it took. Just like they always say about Grandpa. Just one hit.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like Rango.
They did. That's actually. I think that might have been. I know I just made it as a joke there, but that might have been the point of that scene, because you just added there with one hit of the hammer, which is like a line from like
killed everybody. Yeah.
I think that might have been the point. Was that Grandpa's the best at killing. Now we cut back to our 2 survivors at this point, which is our good boy Chop Top, Stretch, the hero, I guess. Not my hero. My hero's Chop Top.
Right, as we know it.
Not Nubbins?
I do love me some Nubbins, but
Nubbins kind of saves the day,
Also, Nubbins was also at the table, so Grandpa killed 5 people. What?
Nubbins, from what we see of Grandpa and then Grandma, Nubbins may very well have been alive this whole time.
He was hit by a truck in the last movie.
I don't think Grandpa or Grandma got ran over by a semi.
Well, Grandma got ran over by a reindeer.
Point. But yeah.
That's a different movie, Austin.
Do we know how Grandma died?
Yeah.
Do we know how Grandma died? It could have been by a reindeer.
No, we do, because she's still alive in this movie.
No, she's not.
She does move on her own in this last scene. Very barely, but she does move.
She turns her head. Yeah.
She does turn her head to Chop Top.
Okay, I missed it, and I don't know if it was intentional. But maybe it was, because she was definitely dead in the last movie. And, I mean, this movie doesn't really care that much about what happened in the last movie. But
no, it does not. But, yeah.
But, yeah, so Stretch is being chased up the little mountain of Texas battle land. Because there's a little mountain in the middle of it, I guess. And it's got this cool, ladder up this mountain. I don't know what this was for, initially. But she's climbing up.
It's for children to frolic on.
That's super safe. But yeah, so he's chasing after her, just using actually, I believe, Nubbins' razor from the first movie, just slicing at her ankles, because he's behind her a little bit still. She then gets tired of it and she bites him and I don't know where that's supposed to be, and punches him a bunch. like kind of leaves him for a little bit and then runs up the rest of the mountain a little bit.
Cool fight scene. Actually, I really like this
It's a
fight
very
scene.
cool fight scene. I am not going to do it justice by trying to explain what happened. But it is this whole, like, the second Lefty shows up from that point on is a great ending sequence to a movie. Like, everything, like, works perfectly well together. But yeah, so he chases her up a little bit more, and then he gets back up to her, and maybe this actually might be when he first starts, like, cutting up her ankles. I could be wrong, because she then at this point kicks him a bunch, and he, like, swings off from, like, the handrail, like, breaks, and he's just, like, hanging from the handrail for a bit.
Yeah.
And then she gets up to the top while he's hanging there. Lost my place. And then he pursues her to the very top where we find Grandma, who has a chainsaw.
In her name.
And then Chop Top, to threaten her, scare her, slits his throat 3 times. And says, like death on a cracker. Don't know what that means, and I'm scared by it, though. Then Stretch takes Grandma's chainsaw, which really makes Chop Top mad, and he runs over to her. As you guys both saw, and I didn't, so it definitely happened if both of you saw it. She, like, looks at him. So I guess she was alive the whole time. So I guess maybe she's also a survivor in the end of the movie.
Thread, man. Yeah.
Well, she has grown in size considerably since the last time we saw her in the first movie.
Thing.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if that's... I don't know. Are you sure, guys? Like, maybe it was, like, supposed to be, like, her head moved? Like skeletons' heads sometimes do? I don't know. I mean...
That's possible. And Chopped Up says after she like turns and his hand is near her head. But I was looking, there's a part where he like moves her head, takes his hand away, and she moves her head some more, and that like drops.
And then he's like,
and then he says, "You killed her." Yeah.
I took that as him just being crazy.
Right. Yeah, you can chalk it up to that, but it looks like her head moves.
Also, we have a 137-year-old grandpa, so it's not out of the realm of possibility.
It's not out of the realm. I took it as her
out.
being crazy. Him being crazy. Because she also does look slightly more skeletal than he does. Like, they have more, like, skeleton makeup on her face compared to him, who has old man makeup. Don't get me wrong. Yes,
on the face.
So, I mean, once again, it doesn't really matter. If maybe she's alive, but I guess she did die from the chainsaw being ripped out of her arms, though. So, she's dead now.
That was the life-giving.
Maybe.
That was her life source.
That was her life source.
The lifeblood. The gasoline that flows through the chainsaw is what keeps them all alive.
Flows through her as well.
Yeah.
Also, this might be a different character as well than the last movie, because they do it. The only time we have this character be referenced was like in a much earlier scene where they call her Great Grandma in Heaven, which could also
the Great Chainsaw Grandma,
which could actually be real. Their real Great Grandma who's dead, or it's this one. I don't know. I really don't know. It also, we're harping on something that definitely doesn't matter
that much.
Yeah. She might be alive, she might be dead, she might have been the great grandma I talked about, she might have not been. But, here's the thing. Stretch took the chainsaw from her. It makes Chop Top really sad. So he then, while she tries to turn the chainsaw on, he just cuts up her back a bunch.
She really ineffective for, murdering someone. But he's just angry.
Yeah. He wants to torture her, a little bit. But then she gets the chainsaw going, and she, stabs him in the stomach. Once again, some good Tom Savini gore before he kind of stumbles back out and falls down the mountain. Presumably to his death, I guess, maybe. I don't know. I guess he could have lived. Who knows? In this world, maybe he lived. I mean, he's never seen again, but maybe he lived.
And then Stretch does her, Leatherface chainsaw dance.
Yeah.
Over the balcony.
Yeah,
the Donkey Kong.
The balcony of the mountain.
Yeah.
I loved it. I liked that scene. It was a nice homage to the first one, but doing it slightly differently.
Yeah.
Unlike the,
hands out.
Yeah. That was a cool homage and callback compared to, their version of the dinner scene, which was just the same joke, but not as well. My thoughts overall are, man, is this a weird sequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But
weird.
I really enjoyed it. It's, a fun time. It's a fun horror comedy with some amazing characters. And it has some cool set pieces. It has some really cool Tom Savini gore, which I'm a little gore boy. I like me some gore. So yeah, I like it. It's not as good as the first in my mind, but I still enjoyed it a lot. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the franchise, because if we have these two great movies, I'm sure the rest of the franchise has no dips at all. Your turn, Chris.
Yeah. This was a wild ride, but I did have a fun time through pretty much all of it. The acting from pretty much all the actors that we get, take up most of the screen time is pretty over the top. So it really is. It's very goofy, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. Which I think, for the sake of this movie, is probably for the better. And yeah, the overall tone of the movie is fun, but definitely not lighthearted. Still very, it is a horror movie, and there is some very unsettling scenes, especially if you stop to think about it. Between the scenes of Chop Top saying wild, insane things, and Lufty shouting to the sky and waving chainsaws around. But yeah, it was a fun time. I'd recommend it to any horror fan. Is it a masterpiece of filmmaking? No, but it is still it's a solid movie. It is a good time to be had.
It is fun. And the one thing that I can say in praise of it really is that they did not repeat the plot of the first movie, which I think deserves some applause. Originality, except for the dinner scene, which is a total recreation, as you put it. But it's. I think they go a little far in that it is so disconnected from the previous one, where the characters can be a little bit difficult to recognize. And even more difficult to recognize is just the whole feel of the movie. This is a garish scene from start to finish. We're hit with like these huge splashes of color everywhere, and these wild and crazy costumes and everything. And we've got like the characters just wearing bodies that themselves are over the top. And the makeup looks really good. If you've already, we all agree on that. And I'm getting too much into the look. I think the main thing is that Leatherface was a legitimately horrifying character in the first one. And we start to learn that part of what makes him horrifying in the first one is that he does have this childlike nature, but that's also part of what makes him, in a very slight way, sympathetic, especially compared to like how the cook, the old man, whatever you want to call him, here Drayton treats him. And here, we really don't see Drayton pile on the abuse as much. He's just he also just has like a very warm face. Like he's got like a friendly looking face. I know we can't control that, so really not a critique, but it's hard to see him as like, I feel like in his older age, he's kind of like rounded out a little bit. I don't know. Not important. But Leatherface now is just like all child, and our final girl is our only girl. Really one of the only characters. Like it's a much smaller cast of characters, and so we don't see a whole group of people like stumbling into his trap. The most fundamental difference is that like instead of people, invading Leatherface's home base, we've got him like going out and hunting after people, and then they have this weird fortress. I don't know. It's just it feels very different. It thinks a lot of the points that they were trying to make in the first one were abandoned, and the ones that they stuck with were made much more in your face. Whatever they're trying to say about the difference between men and women is a lot cartoonier in this one. Like with the proportions of the grandma, she's got these great huge tracts of land and everything when we find her. And the whole thrusting scene with the chainsaw, that was a lot subtler in the first one, along with everything else. And this is just much more over the top. So in that respect, I think it wasn't as good. The characters are very different, and I don't think for the better. Um, I didn't find it that scary or that funny. It had its moments for each, but for a horror comedy, I feel like those elements should be pretty central, and I don't think it delivered on them. It departed a lot from the previous one, so I wasn't a huge fan personally.
It's fair. I mean, I hate you now. No, I'm just kidding.
That's appropriate.
Yeah,
That's an appropriate response.
Also, I just had this other thought as we were talking about, as you were talking about like, the differences. Another thing I didn't remember to bring up at any point discussing this is this movie's very weird because I don't also know what I would define it as. Because I don't think this movie is a slasher film. Because like if we go for like what a slasher film is, this is not.
Yeah.
There are 3 kills like with the are like 2 like victims. Like everything else is like it's such a weird movie. Like here's the thing, I've already said I love it, but it is such a weird movie that I don't even know where you define it. It's like it's a horror comedy. What kind of horror? It's a horror movie. It's there. It's not a slasher film.
Doesn't need to be defined.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
Yeah.
I think
It's a gore
a little
horror movie.
Yeah, side piece to mention there is that it's not a slasher film, which I welcomed, but from my understanding, the next movie we're going to watch next week is right back to just being the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but not as good from my understanding. I could be wrong. I hope to be proven wrong, because we've been proven wrong. We've proven the internet wrong before. We're talking to you, Friday the 13th reboot. It's a great movie. You're an idiot if you think otherwise. I'm just kidding. I'm joking. No. But if you're a Friday the 13th fan and you don't like that movie, I genuinely don't understand you.
Dude.
Yeah, I don't get it. But yeah, next week we're watching the brilliantly titled and annoyingly titled Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Just to
all right.
add to the weird confusion of the titling sequence throughout the rest of this franchise as we continue to get different and different. But yeah, next week we're watching that. If you like this podcast, we can be found on all your favorite podcast apps if they're Google, Amazon, or Spotify. Not Amazon. We're not on Amazon. Apple. Amazon doesn't have podcasts. I'm sorry for saying that. Google, Apple, or Spotify. Hey, if you're listening to us on any of those, leave us a 5-star review. It helps us in the algorithm. I hate saying it, but from my understanding, it actually does. So, like, it'd be cool if you helped. If you don't want to help that way, you could head on over to patreon.com/horrorboys and help us directly and get a bunch of content, hypothetically. It's all hypothetical. None of it exists except for this show early. But we will make other content if you pay us. But yeah, I've been Austin, joined by Chris and Isaiah, and we're the Horror Boys. So we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, see y'all later.